Same files. Get ready to rock, because this time we're diving into Louder Than Life 2025.
Oh man, this year's lineup, it's insane. It's huge. Over 160 bands, 6 stages.
6 stages.
Louisville, Kentucky, September 18th to the 21st.
You're telling me. And you know our listeners are already stoked about this festival, but they sent us a mountain of articles that really dig into the details. So let's help them unpack all this hype.
Absolutely. And I think the best place to start is with the headliners. Slayer back from retirement.
Oh, come on.
For a global exclusive.
Come on.
This isn't just a band, this is a metal institution.
I'm with you. I mean, even for folks who aren't like diehard thrash fans, Slayer's impact on heavy music, it's undeniable. This is a chance to see a band that shaped a genre.
And it's not just about nostalgia either. Having Slayer back in the game, even for a limited run, it sends a ripple through the entire scene. It's a statement.
Okay, so Slayer's huge, but then there's Rock Zombie performing Astro Creep, 2000 in its entirety.
Wow.
For White Zombie fans, this is sacred ground.
Right.
That album was a game changer. Blending metal with industrial, this spooky B-movie vibe.
Oh, you're so right. Astro Creep. 2000 pushed boundaries, and its influence can still be heard in bands today. To hear it live, front to back, it's like a sonic time capsule of that era.
Yeah, and it's not all blasts from the past. Avenged Sevenfold, Deftones, Bring Me the Horizon, Sleep Token. This lineup is a mix of metal royalty and bands defining the sound of heavy music right now.
It's smart programming. You've got something for the old school fans, something for the newer generation. It bridges that gap between metal's history and its future.
Now let's talk about those special moments that make a festival like this truly unforgettable. I mean, Slayer's comeback is one for the books.
Of course.
But you've also got Trivium playing Ascendancy for its 20th anniversary.
Ascendancy was a pivotal album for Trivium. It blended melodic death metal with metalcore, and it really put them on the map. For a lot of fans, this album is a cornerstone of their musical identity.
Oh, for sure.
So to hear it played live, especially in its entirety, it's going to be an emotional experience.
And let's not forget those reunions. Acid Bath, Snot, From First to Last. These are bands that haven't graced the stage together in years. For some fans, this is a chance to relive their youth, to see bands they thought they'd never get to experience live.
It adds another layer to the festival. It's not just about the music itself. It's about shared history, nostalgia, and the energy that comes with seeing these reunions come to life.
And here's where things get interesting for someone like our listener who may not be from Louisville. This festival isn't just a massive party. It's an economic engine for the city. We're talking millions of dollars pumped into hotels, restaurants, you name it.
Exactly. You have fans traveling from all 50 states internationally to be a part of this. They're booking flights, they're renting cars, exploring the city. It's a tourism boom.
And let's not forget about the urban bourbon trip.
Oh, yes.
Kentucky is bourbon country, and Louder Than Life brings a whole new wave of bourbon enthusiasts to the city.
It's a great way for attendees to experience the local culture and flavor of Louisville, and it benefits those local businesses directly. It's a win-win situation.
So let's say our listeners is ready to book their trip.
Yeah.
What are their ticket options? I know there's everything from general admission to the VIP treatment.
You've got your basic GA passes, then you step up to VIP with perks like dedicated viewing areas and exclusive bars. And then there's the Angels Envy Top Shelf VIP experience.
Oh, okay.
Which is like luxury on overdrive.
Angels Envy Top Shelf VIP. Sounds fancy. What exactly does that entail?
Think gourmet food, premium drinks, private viewing platforms, and even access to artist lounges. It's the ultimate festival indulgence.
Wow. And for those who want to fully immerse themselves in the festival atmosphere, there's always camping, right?
Absolutely. They have on-site camping options from standard tent camping to, you guessed it, glamping.
Here's where it gets really interesting for someone who loves their creature comforts. Glamping at a metal festival. It's like the best of both worlds. So what does glamping at Louder Than Life look like?
It depends on the package you choose, but we're talking real beds, electricity, maybe even private bathrooms. It's a far cry from roughing it.
That sounds amazing. Especially after a long day of rocking out, you can retreat to your little haven of comfort.
It's a great way to stay close to the action without sacrificing comfort. Plus, you can really connect with the festival community in the camping areas. It's like its own little city within the festival.
Okay, so we've covered the basics, the lineup, the impact, the logistics. But let's face it, with a lineup this stacked, the real question is, how do you even begin to tackle this festival?
That's the million-dollar question. Where do you even start with 160 bands? It can feel like trying to drink from a fire hose of rock and metal.
That's a great analogy. You're absolutely right. It's exhilarating and overwhelming at the same time.
I think the key is to prioritize. Go into this knowing you can't see everything. What bands are absolute must-sees for you? What experiences are at the top of your list?
You got to be strategic about it. Otherwise, you'll end up running around in a frenzy and missing out on the things you really wanted to see.
Exactly. And remember, there's always next year. Louder Than Life isn't going anywhere. And there will always be new bands to discover and new experiences to be had.
So for our listener who's ready to dive into the deep end of Louder Than Life, where should they start? What are some tips for navigating this massive festival?
I think a good starting point is to familiarize yourself with the lineup and the festival map. Figure out which stages are hosting the bands you want to see and get a sense of the layout.
Right. You don't want to be sprinting from one end of the festival grounds to the other, missing half a set because you didn't realize how far apart everything was.
And honestly, just be open to the experience. Let yourself get swept up in the energy, explore different stages, and be open to discovering new bands. That's part of the fun of a festival.
Sometimes the best moments happen when you least expect them. You're walking by a stage, hear a killer riff, and suddenly you're hooked.
Exactly. Those unexpected discoveries are what make festivals so special. You never know what hidden gems you might find.
And hey, even if you don't catch every band on your list, you're still guaranteed to have an incredible time. Louder Than Life is about more than just ticking off names on a lineup. It's about the overall experience. It's about the energy of the crowd, the camaraderie, the shared love of music.
It's about being a part of something bigger than yourself. A community of like-minded people who are there to celebrate the power of rock and metal, and that's something pretty special.
I think that's a perfect place to wrap up this first part of our Louder Than Life deep dive. We've laid the groundwork, explored the lineup, and even touched on some festival survival tips. But there's so much more to unpack.
Stay tuned, because in the next part, we'll delve even deeper into the heart of Louder Than Life. We'll talk about the impact of these reunions, the rise of some of these newer bands, and what makes this festival a must-attend event for any rock and metal fan.
So grab your earplugs, crank up the volume, and get ready to rock, because Louder Than Life is just around the corner.
It's mind-blowing to think about the sheer scale of putting together a festival like Louder Than Life. We're talking over 160 bands. Yeah.
Their gear, their travel,
Right.
It's a logistical ballet of epic proportions.
Yeah, it's like orchestrating a heavy metal army.
Yeah.
And then you've got the fans, the
Oh.
food vendors, the stages, the security. It's a temporary city
Right.
built on a foundation of rock and roll.
Absolutely.
And speaking of the city,
Okay.
let's talk about Louisville for a second.
Yeah.
It's not just a random spot on the map.
Huh.
It adds like a unique flavor to the Louder Than Life experience.
Absolutely. Louisville has this cool, like, down-to-earth vibe, and it's the heart of bourbon country. I can imagine festival goers, taking a break from the mosh pits to sip some fine Kentucky bourbon.
Our listeners thinking the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
And they'd be right. The festival even has the Kroger Big Bourbon Bar, where attendees can sample a variety of bourbons and learn about Kentucky's rich bourbon heritage.
Talk about immersing yourself in the local culture. It's not just about the music. It's about experiencing everything Louisville has to offer. Right, and let's not forget the economic impact. We touched on it earlier, but this festival brings in serious cash for the city.
Millions of dollars, in fact. It's a huge boost for tourism, hotels, restaurants, those bourbon distilleries we were just talking about. It's a win-win for everyone involved.
But beyond the economic benefits, there's something special about the community that forms at a festival like this. It's a gathering of tribes, united by their love of heavy music.
You see people from all walks of life, all ages, all backgrounds, headbanging side by side. It's a powerful reminder that music can transcend differences and create a sense of belonging.
It's a beautiful thing. And it challenges the stereotype of metal fans being all about anger and aggression. There's a real sense of camaraderie and shared passion at Louder Than Life.
Absolutely. It's like a giant family reunion for headbangers.
Right.
And that shared passion creates this incredible energy that's palpable throughout the festival.
Okay, so our listener is sold on the experience. Now let's get practical. They can be there for 4 days. What are the lodging options? Where can they rest their weary head-banging heads?
Well, as we mentioned, there's on-site camping ranging from basic tent camping to those luxurious glamping setups.
I gotta say, glamping at a metal festival sounds pretty appealing. Imagine waking up in a comfy bed, having access to electricity, maybe even a hot shower, before heading out to mosh.
It's like having your cake and headbanging to it, too.
Yeah.
And for those who prefer a more traditional hotel experience, there are plenty of options in and around Louisville.
And transportation. If our listeners flying in, what's the best way to get to the festival grounds?
Well, the Louisville airport is about a 15-minute drive from the Kentucky Exposition Center, where the festival is held. They could rent a car, take a taxi, or even use a ride-sharing service. And if they're driving, it's a good idea to plan their route in advance and factor in traffic and parking.
Once they're at the festival, comfortable shoes are a must. You're going to be doing a lot of walking between stages, food vendors, and those bourbon bars.
Don't underestimate the amount of ground you'll cover at a festival like this. And speaking of essentials, don't forget sunscreen, a hat, sunglasses, and a reusable water bottle. Staying hydrated is crucial, especially when you're rocking out under the sun.
And earplugs.
Yes.
Protect your hearing, folks. You want to be able to enjoy heavy music for years to come.
You know, earplugs can actually enhance the sound quality, too, by reducing distortion. You can hear the music more clearly without damaging your ears.
And what about those extra things that can make the festival experience even better? I always bring a portable phone charger. You're going to be using your phone a lot for taking pictures, videos, checking the schedule, and a dead battery is a festival buzzkill.
And a small backpack or fanny pack is essential for carrying your essentials. You don't want to be lugging around a heavy bag all day.
Speaking of bags, I've seen those hydration backpacks with built-in water bladders becoming popular at festivals. It's a great way to stay hydrated and have your hands free for all that glorious headbanging.
Now, let's talk about mosh pits. They're a big part of the metal festival experience, but it's important to be respectful of others.
Definitely. If you see someone fall, help them up. If you bump into someone, apologize. And if you're not into moshing, that's totally cool. There are plenty of areas where you can enjoy the music without getting caught in the chaos.
Exactly. And even if you are a seasoned mosher, take breaks, step back from the crowd, catch your breath, and rehydrate. Pacing yourself is key to surviving a 4-day festival.
So we've covered the logistics, the essentials, and even mosh pit etiquette. Now let's get back to the music. With 160 bands, where do you even start?
It's like standing at the foot of Mount Rockmore, wondering which face to climb first. My advice is to do your research beforehand. Listen to some of the bands you're not familiar with, create a rough schedule of who you want to see, and then be open to adjusting it as you go.
It's a delicate balance between planning and spontaneity. You want to make sure you catch your must-see bands, but also leave room for those serendipitous discoveries.
Some of the best festival moments happen when you stumble upon a band you've never heard of and end up having your mind blown.
Those unexpected musical encounters are pure magic. So as we wrap up this part of our louder-than-life adventure, let's leave our listener with a final thought. Go into this festival with an open mind, a sense of adventure, and a whole lot of excitement.
Because Louder Than Life is more than just a festival, it's a celebration of the power and community of heavy music. It's a chance to connect with like-minded souls, discover new bands, and create memories that will last a lifetime.
And with a lineup this stacked, it's guaranteed to be a wild ride. All right, we've covered a lot of ground, but let's get down to brass tacks. Our listener is hyped, they've got their tickets, maybe even a sweet glamping spot reserved. But with 160 bands over 4 days, where do they even begin?
It's the ultimate festival paradox. So much amazing music, so little time. It's almost like trying to choose your favorite riff from a Pantera song. Impossible.
Okay, maybe not that tough, but I do think our listener needs a solid game plan. Otherwise, they'll be running from stage to stage, ending up exhausted and missing half the fun.
Right. Remember what we talked about. Prioritizing is key. Think of those legendary headliners like Slayer and Rob Zombie doing Astra Creep. Those are your anchors, your can't-miss experiences.
I'm picturing our listener with their festival app open, highlighting those must-see bands, like they're plotting a heavy metal treasure map.
Exactly. And once they've got those locked in, they can start filling in the gaps. Maybe there's a newer band, like Sleep Token, they're curious about, or a genre they want to explore further. This is where a little bit of pre-festival listening comes in handy.
I'm all about those festival discoveries, but you don't want to waste precious time on a band that just doesn't vibe with you. A little research goes a long way.
And speaking of time, remember what we said about travel time between stages. Louder Than Life is huge. Factor in those distances and maybe even build in some buffer time for bathroom breaks, merch lines, or grabbing a bourbon at the Kroger Big Bourbon Bar.
Because, let's face it, sometimes those lines can get longer than the wait for a new Tool album.
Oh, for sure. And here's another pro tip for our listener. Embrace flexibility. Don't be afraid to deviate from that meticulously crafted schedule if something catches your ear.
You mean those moments when you're wandering between sets and you hear a riff so heavy it makes the ground shake, and suddenly you're front row at a band you've never even heard of?
Exactly. Those unexpected musical encounters are part of what makes festivals so special. It's about surrendering to the flow of the music and the energy of the crowd.
It's about those happy accidents that lead to discovering your new favorite band. Now, speaking of favorites, let's dive into some of the bands that are generating the most buzz for this year's Louder Than Life.
Well, as we've mentioned, Slayer's reunion is a monumental event. They're considered one of the big four of thrash metal, alongside Metallica, Megadeth, and Anthrax, and their influence on extreme music is undeniable.
Think about it. Slayer's music helped define a whole subgenre of metal. For many fans, this isn't just a concert, it's a pilgrimage.
And then you have Rob Zombie performing Astro Creep, 2000 in its entirety. This album wasn't just a commercial success, it was a cultural phenomenon. It blended industrial metal with this horror-infused aesthetic that was totally unique at the time.
This is more than just nostalgia. It's a chance to revisit an album that pushed creative boundaries and left its mark on a generation of musicians.
And let's not forget Avenged Sevenfold, headlining their only U.S. show of the year at Louder Than Life. They've evolved their sound over the years, incorporating elements of classic rock and metalcore, but their live shows are always a spectacle.
They know how to put on a show, that's for sure.
Yeah.
From pyrotechnics to elaborate stage setups, they bring the drama.
Now let's shift gears and talk about some of those newer bands that are shaking up the rock and metal scene. We've already mentioned Sleep Token, but they're worth highlighting again. They've cultivated this air of mystery with their masked identities and their sound that blends atmospheric metal, prog rock, and almost spiritual lyrics.
It's like they're channeling something otherworldly, and their live performances are hypnotic. You get sucked into their sound.
Another band to watch is Bad Omens. They've mastered the art of blending heavy riffs with soaring melodies and emotionally charged lyrics. They tap into this raw vulnerability that resonates with a lot of younger fans.
It's almost like they're the bridge between the metalcore of the early 2000s and the more modern sounds of today. They're heavy, but they're also accessible.
And speaking of accessibility, Spirit Box is a band that's broken down barriers with their unique blend of technical metal and catchy hooks. Their vocalist, Courtney LaPlante, has this incredible range that can go from guttural screams to soaring cleans in an instant.
She's a powerhouse. And their music is both brutal and beautiful. They're a perfect example of how the boundaries of metal are constantly being pushed.
And beyond those three, there's so much to explore on this lineup. From the technical death metal of Lorna Shore to the progressive metal mastery of Dream Theater to the comeback kids like Acid Bath and Snot, there's something for everyone.
It's a veritable feast for the ears. And beyond the individual bands, there's that intangible energy that makes a festival like Louder Than Life so special.
It's about more than just the music. It's about immersing yourself in a community of people who share your passion for heavy music.
It's about those moments when you're screaming along to your favorite songs, surrounded by thousands of other fans, and you feel this sense of unity, of belonging.
It's a powerful experience, and it's something that you can only truly understand by being there. By feeling the energy of the crowd, the heat of the mosh pits, and the shared love of music that permeates the air.
So if you're on the fence about attending Louder Than Life, take our advice. Just go for it.
Yeah.
You won't regret it.
It's an experience that will stay with you long after the last band has played and the echoes of the music have faded.
And that wraps up our Louder Than Life deep dive. We hope we've given our listener everything they need to navigate this massive festival and have an unforgettable experience.
Go forth, embrace the chaos, and let the music guide you.
And remember, stay hydrated, wear comfortable shoes, and protect your ears. We'll see you in the mosh pit.